And this is, I want to point out to those in the chat, this is 44 years of developing through the course. And what I love about the course is it deepens, and it just deepens, and on and on and on. So I got, as I mentioned to you backstage, I got immense benefit from imperfect practice early on,
Hmm.
putting it aside, putting it aside. It led me to the story that I told you, a very miraculous event, and it was really a miracle as offered by the course. It was that shift of perception where I realized I did not have to live in fear of an addiction. I
Right.
could step into freedom, but it was I had to make that choice, and I wasn't alone in making it. I was beckoned in this
Yes.
direction. Um, but I think of that with my own writing. That very often I'll write something, and um, some people may or may not like it. Some people may or may not like it, and I'm always given information. But this is I write from where I am right now,
Yes.
and I might take all the information that I was given from these others and refine it, and I'll be in a different place tomorrow, and I might write the same thing from a slightly different place than I was the day before,
Yeah.
because the course just keeps asking us open up and open up a little bit more and open up a little bit more. Um, it goes to one of my favorite sections in the manual for teachers, trust. I'm learning to
Yes.
trust.
Everything's built on trust. Start with trust. That's the bedrock.
By the way, that is also my least favorite section, um, because uh, to to learn to trust that way, to open to that trust, uh, you will encounter, uh, or I did, a great amount of fear.
Hmm. For sure. Sure. You know, so actually the reason I was talking about like when I first started about how I felt about me is because along the line, what I began to accept fully is that I'm not Myron. Myron is the character or the avatar that is representing the spirit that I am. Okay, so that took me a long time to be able to say those words without feeling strange about it, but that's exactly what's happening. So in the beginning, I was very, very attached to and identified with Myron. And Myron was had a lot of unworthiness and fear and anger and guilt. I didn't like her very much. I was embarrassed by her, ashamed of her. Sometimes I would act like the opposite, like Myron's just like so good, and then feel like a liar afterwards. And so I had all that going on. And what has occurred is now more than ever, I recognize Myron as not me, and I don't feel as attached or as identified with Myron, but I like her. I'm fond of her. It's kind of like when you go to a really good movie and you get to where the main character, you love that character. You're so sorry when the movie's over or the book is over, not because the story was so great, but because you like that character so much. So I'm very fond of this character that I call Myron, that everybody calls Myron. And that was, again, that very gentle, very step by step change that I didn't even realize had occurred until recently when I was thinking about, for some reason, this came up and I was like, oh, I kind of like that Myron character now. And another thing I want to add to that is I'm not trying to improve on Myron. Any improvement that occurs, it occurs because of this change of mind as I'm going along and forgiving, forgiving, forgiving. Because why would you try to improve upon a character that doesn't exist, that is an illusion? that is part of a dream. This is my dream character. I'm dreaming Myron. So I'm not trying, and that's very helpful because even now, Myron can be ridiculous and do crazy things and bring up all kinds of nonsense in the mind. It's not my job to fix Myron. Who cares? It's just a character. My job is to heal the thoughts and beliefs that I am discovering as I watch the story of Myron. So I keep doing that. Someone asked me, she says, how do you know when you've done it, when you get I don't know. I don't know. If I'm very, very vigilant, consistent, and focused, which does not mean working hard, it just means being those things, and I do what's right in front of me to do, then I might wake up in this lifetime. And if I do that, well, then I still don't know if I've reached whatever I came to do, but I did have that experience, and that would be pretty darn cool.
Right.
Because the one thing that I know about awakening is that there's no more suffering. You don't suffer. Why would you suffer? Because you know it's a dream character. So you don't get attached to it. You know this is a dream. You don't get worried about the dream. It's like you're still in it. You're still living it. You're still having the same experience everybody else is having, but it's from such a different perspective that there's no suffering. And I had a little taste of that in 2019. I had a day in which I found myself in a parking lot just sobbing my eyes out over some thought from the past that I was feeling this intense guilt about. And I didn't even know why I was feeling the guilt at the time. I just knew it was there and I was just crying and crying. And I was like, oh, I just want to, I just need to experience something else. I need to be out of this. At any rate, I did finally calm down. The next day, I was going to do a workshop in Portland, Oregon, and so I had to fly there because I live in Louisiana. So I had to fly to Portland, and I went to get on the to when I started getting ready, everything was a little different because normally I'm quite nervous about flights. You got to get there ahead of time. You got to be careful what you pack, all that stuff. And I wasn't feeling that. So I thought, well, that's nice. So I get to the airport, same thing. Everything is perfect. From where I live to fly anywhere, you can't go straight there. You have to go somewhere else and to some hub and then fly. So I was flying to Dallas, and the problem with the Dallas airport is that they have a lot of bad weather, and so we got diverted into this little tiny airport. It is so small that it's got they got bathrooms, one for the men, one for the women. It's got a vending machine, and it's one room. That's it. And all the people from that plane are in there, and they're in a panic because they're going to miss their flight. Some of them are going overseas, and how's that going to work? And I was just having the best time. I was enjoying every minute. I would walk around and find somebody who wasn't whining about it, and we would have a conversation, and I just got to know a lot of people, and I'll never see them again, but it was fun, in the moment. Just enjoyed it. Wound up spending the night and finally got a ride to the Dallas airport because this town is so small, they don't even have a hotel, and they're about to close the airport because it's their closing time, and I managed to get in a ride with some other people and got to the airport. Spent the night walking around the Dallas airport, which is huge, by the way. Walking around that airport in the middle of the night, so it's after midnight now. It's dark. Everybody's asleep. They got people laying on the floor because they couldn't leave either. The weather was in Dallas. So they're sleeping on the floor. I'm the only person awake. I'm just walking around that airport. And every once in a while, I had this little thought, this could be dangerous. And then it would just go away. It would be like it would just evaporate. And I was happy. I didn't sleep for I don't know how many hours. It was like I got up at 4 in the morning and then in the next day getting to Portland in the middle of the day. And I'm just excited, I'm energetic, I'm having so much. I'm enjoying this so much. I lost my phone while I was there. Talk about panicked. I couldn't even call the people who were supposed to pick me up. So I didn't panic. I just said, "Oh, well, I'm sure I'll find it." And this huge airport, I'm sure I'll find it. And sure enough, I did. And when I got to the workshop, actually, I wasn't doing this workshop. I was attending one with my friend Regina Dawn Akers. And that, as happens, we were sharing a room, and so she was asking me, and I was telling her about it. And she says, "Oh," she says, "you've achieved fundamental well-being, which is like a first stage of awakening." And I didn't know what it meant at the time. And all I knew was that everything was perfect. I was supposed to stay there afterwards, and the man and woman, husband and wife who were putting this on, they had invited me to come to their beach house, and I was going to stay for 3 weeks, and that kind of thing. It turns out that didn't work, and I called my kids as I'm coming home early, and they're like, "Oh, mom, we're so sorry." I said, "Oh, it's fine." You know, everything was like that. I felt so happy, and that continued for several weeks. But then one day I'm sitting on the couch, and like all the time this is happening, there's like a part of me that's like, holy cow, this is amazing. But I'm sitting on the couch, and I had the thought, you know what? I think I could take the next step. I know I could. I could give up this whole sense of a self, this whole sense of Myron. I could do that. And as soon as I had that thought, I hit that dark sentinel that said, "Oh, you've gone too far.
Mm.
This is scary." And as soon as I had that thought, it burst. And I couldn't, and I was like, no, 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 wait, let me think about this. But nope, it was too late. So from there, slowly I began to lose that sense of well-being, that fundamental well-being. It never went away completely, but it wasn't that consistent. Everything is perfect. Everything is perfect, no matter what's happening. But I will get it back. That's not a problem. It was like I had said, I need something to hold on to. And that was a gift that I was given.
That little bit of grace.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and the thing with grace is that we really can't, we can never demand it.
Mm-mm.
Um, we can't really petition, but we can make ourselves available for it. And I think that's the wonderful thing about the course is every day we're making ourselves available for grace.
Yes. Exactly. And that's that can happen that happens to us every day when we do these forgiveness practices. We get some grace. And eventually it'll lead us into something that's a grace that's even amazing, has happened with you. It has happened to me more than once. Um, and eventually, we'll go out that final door. This is what, and the thing is, when you start running, and don't even be afraid of these dark sentinels, they're just your thoughts, just your ego thoughts. But here's the thing, when you start running into those sentinels, this don't go there, it's scary, don't look at this, you're guilty, you're not worthy. When you start hitting those, that's good news because that means you're making progress. As long as you're asleep in the dream, the ego has no interest in the sentinels. It doesn't care because you're not approaching them. But when you start seeing that show up in your study, well then, yay. You are really making progress. And that sentinel at that when you get near awakening, it gets very ferocious. These but you remember you put them there because you wanted to have this experience. So you said, I don't want to leave it. So I'm putting a sentinel there. But we never planned to stay here forever. That's why we put doors. That's why we gave ourselves exits. because we knew the day would come when we would be ready to wake up from the dream. And we are ready, or we wouldn't be studying the course.